Hello, and thank you for joining us again in another video. And if you have not listened to those previous to this, videos 1, 2, and 3, please do that. I think it helps very much if we take them in order. Thank you to you for spending your time and to your teacher for recommending this to you. In our friendship faith sharing, we're on page 4. There will be a link to this specific PDF page in the description below, as well as a link to our Facebook page so you can follow up with me with any questions. This is about obstacles. As we learn how to share our faith with others, we come across obstacles, and that's okay. That's part of life, but we want to know how to identify those obstacles and avoid them so that we don't get bogged down. The first obstacle is internal distractions, and those are spiritual things. And there's so much spiritual change we want to see in a person's life that is not a Christian. There's so much spiritual change we want to see in our own lives as believers as we mature. And those are good things. But when a person doesn't know Jesus, there's no reason to try to make all of those other spiritual changes in their life. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 2. Paul has gone to Corinth, and he is writing now to the Corinthians. This is really his third letter, the 1 Corinthians. But he says, I resolved to know nothing while I was with you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. Now, if you ever go to Corinth, there's this beautiful temple up on top of a mountain, and all kinds of things happened there. It was known in Paul's day as a place where if there was a sin on planet Earth, if there was a depravity on planet Earth, you could go to Corinth and participate in that. Paul could have attacked all of that. He could have challenged all of that. He could have tried to fix all of that. But what did he do? He didn't try to make a ton of spiritual changes in these people's lives. He just introduced Christ. Introduced Christ. Introduced Christ. That's how the Corinthian church was founded. That's why the Corinthian church still exists today, some 2,000 years later and counting. So when we're dealing with someone who is not a believer in Jesus Christ, they don't know what it is to receive his grace and his forgiveness. There may be a lot of spiritual changes we would like to see in them, just as we see spiritual changes in ourselves. But let's don't get bogged down in that. Let's learn how to introduce them to Jesus first. Then when they become believers, we can mature with them, and that'll be a great thing. There are also external distractions. There's a lot going on in our world culturally and politically. There's justice that's not happening. There's false justice that is happening. And we want to be a part of that change. And that's certainly a good thing for Christians to be involved in. Nothing wrong with that. But if a person is not a believer, in the context of this lesson, I don't want to fix their political views if I think they're wrong. I don't want to fix all of their habits and etc. I want to stay focused on what is my plan and what is my purpose in sharing Jesus with them in the context of sharing our faith. Psalms 119 verse 15 says, I meditate on your precepts and consider your ways. So the psalmist is saying, I'm constantly thinking about your word to guide my own life. So in the context of this lesson, we want to be thinking about the scriptures of this lesson, the questions that we will learn to ask, the verses that we will learn to share. We want to be thinking about them regularly so that when we come across someone who is ready to listen, we know how to share and we aren't distracted by all the other things we wish we could fix with them in our own lives and in their lives. Thank you for listening. Go back to your teacher with any questions. Go to our Facebook page, ask me any questions in a message. Don't send anything personal in an open comment, but in our private messages, do that. We love you. Thank you for being involved, and God's going to do great things in your life. I'm confident of that.